a Playlist original.
Hey everyone, Jeff here from Films at Home. Thanks for coming back to the Films at Home podcast today. Whether you're listening on your favorite podcast apps or you're watching on YouTube, I appreciate all the support. Today's guest is Drew Hanks. He's an independent filmmaker and director who recently released the movie The Made Man, which in his words is a mafia sex comedy. So we get into that a little bit, but what I was really interested about and why I invited Drew on the podcast was because he has released independently a Blu-ray of his movie. And that's not something you see a lot. So I got to dive in here, somebody who self-funded a movie, had an independent movie release. We get to dive in and talk about what's the process? How do you get a Blu-ray release made? Where do you go to do that? He also had 35 millimeter film reels made. How does that work? The whole process behind that. What's his thought process on why he wanted to do a physical media release? I think it's a really interesting conversation. If you guys have ever had any interest in, how independent filmmakers get their stuff out there through Kickstarter, and Drew in particular going the physical media route, it was super interesting to hear how really, anybody out there with the funds and with the passion and, with the right movie that they've created and self-funded could go out and get a physical media release. And, Drew poured his heart into this project, and it was really cool to talk to him and hear from, a smaller filmmaker why physical media was so important and the little intricacies of, getting this actually authored on a Blu-ray disc and the artwork and, the color grading of it. It's a black and white movie, how that all worked. Very interesting conversation. If you're at all interested in that, if you've ever thought about filmmaking, I think this would be a really good one for you. And we touch on lots of very, in-depth physical media, Blu-ray authoring type topics. So very interesting episode. I learned a ton and hopefully you guys will too. So sit back, relax, enjoy the interview with Drew, and I'll come back at the end with the outro. All right, everyone. So here's our interview today for the podcast. We've got filmmaker and director Drew Hanks. Drew, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you taking the time. Want to give us a little quick intro on you and what you've been working on and what you're all about?
Yeah, sure thing. First off, big fan of Films at Home, of course. Yeah. Filmmaker, yeah, I wrote, directed, produced, edited a feature film called The Made Man. And it was a super low budget movie, but we've been having some screenings. We got some Blu-rays made and just kind of, making some movies out here.
Yeah. And I see the collection behind you. So you're obviously a physical media enthusiast as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So was that when you went out to make this movie, were you sort of from the start, you were like, this has to have a physical release, we're going to make this happen? Or is that something that sort of just...
Yeah. No, 100%. I was nerding out so hard. The two big things, and this is what I always tell any sort of inspired filmmaker who's trying to make something, is always work, for passion projects, that is, work backwards from what you want it to be. What is the end satisfaction for you? And for me, it was having a 35 millimeter film print of the movie and having Blu-ray, physical copies as well. So yeah, that was definitely the end canvas, is if we're just thinking about a movie as an object, an art object. Those were the two big things.
That's a cool way of thinking about it. So you were you're in your head, you're I envision this Blu-ray that I want to have made. So now I need to go make the movie that makes that happen.
Yes, 100%.
That's awesome.
It's very, very much a, consumer capitalist way of thinking about it, but it's true.
It's a collector way of thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, totally.
That's why I'm trying to, I am not a filmmaker, but I was well, what kind of physical media can I get on my shelf? That's why I started. I was I'm going to write a book just so I can say I got something on my shelf, physical, that I created, because I'm not good enough to make a movie, but I was I got to do something. I feel the same way though. I feel you. I was I'm coming from a place of I just want a book. So now I need to figure out how and what the topic is going to be. So
100%.
I hear you. Yeah. Having that end goal in mind makes total sense. So you want to give us a little bit on the movie. So what's the movie about? Like, where have you guys been showing it? Where can people find it right now?
So the film is called The Made Man, and it's a dark comedy mafia film. That the logline would be Hitman Giovanni is soon to be made a man in the mafia, and only to find out that at the ceremony, the Don can ask Giovanni to do any one thing. And if he doesn't do that one thing, not only does he not become a made man, but he will be killed. And so to avoid spoilers, let's just say it turns into a sex comedy. Okay. So it kind of... It has that turning point in it. But yeah, it's a crime film inspired by, film noir and stuff like that. If you live in Los Angeles, our next screening is May 28th, and that'll be of our 35 millimeter film print. It's at Secret Movie Club Theater, which is in downtown Los Angeles. And soon enough, we will have these Blu-rays released, and those will be for sale, most likely on DiabolikDVD.com.
Oh, nice. So I love Diabolic DVD. That's a good spot for it. Find some collectors. Yeah, that's awesome. So you already have that sort of lined up?
Yeah, I had made a short film with my good friend Riley, and we had shot that on VHS, and then we had VHS copies manufactured, and those were sold on Diabolic DVD.
Very cool.
And yeah, that was a really fun experience. And Jesse's such a great guy over there.
Yeah, if you get his ear, tell him he needs to come on here and talk Diabolic DVD, because we need to get the word out, because they're great. I mean, they just have so much stuff that nobody else has. 100%.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Dude.
There's me in an interview trying to get another guest for the podcast, but hey, shamelessly just trying to get him. He would be a great guest. I definitely would. I've talked to him before, and I've never just been able to wrangle him into coming on, but that's super cool to get something. I mean, talk about goals. Not only do you get a Blu-ray, but you get it sold on Diabolic DVD. That's pretty sweet. That is definitely goals for a collector.
You get it. Yeah, no,
absolutely.
I'm telling you, those are like my dreams,
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, I'm just I've made stuff all of my life, like films and everything like that. And so I'm also a film fan. Mm-hmm. And so like to me, it's two different, there's a schism in my brain. One side of it is the film fan, and then the other guy is the one who makes stuff. And sometimes they talk to each other and hang out, but for the most part, I'm just as excited to get my second sight copy of Martin. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
As like any collector out there.
Oh my God. I just filmed the review for that this week.
No way.
It hasn't posted to YouTube yet. I filmed it. It's all there. I got to edit it up, but what an incredible,
beautiful
time to just be alive, to even have an option to, buy that on 4K. And the set is incredible. It's an unreal time.
Yeah. I should have ponied up for the limited set, but I just got the standard 4K one. But
either way,
transfers, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, just having it in a 4K format is like it's incredible when you've only had these like terrible DVD versions of it before. These things were like, might as well have been VHS, like transfers over. I mean, the work they did is incredible.
That's
so
how I remember seeing it.
Yeah. And it's such a good movie. So, how did you get started making movies? Like, you're just you said your film fan and your creator mind are sort of separate. I mean, is that what inspired it, or did you sort of start making things first, and then as a result of that became more of a film fan and studied film harder?
I think from an early age, I was always like, I'm gonna make movies. Like, that's the only thing I can do. And hopefully it works out. It's like was always the goal. The movie, so I definitely think I was obsessed with movies first. Just because I, growing up in the 90s was a VHS baby and all of that stuff. And so like I remember watching Jaws like at way too young of an age. I see your Jaws poster over there.
Yes,
so
that's my story. That's how I got started. I watched it at like 5 years old on Cape Cod, and
same.
And
no joke.
Went to the beaches that it was like filmed. It wasn't filmed on the Cape. It was filmed on Martha's Vineyard right off of it. But I was like, I watched that movie at 5 and then went and swam in the waters they filmed it. I was like, damn, I had no fear back then. Now I'd be way too afraid to do that.
See, I'm the exact opposite. When I was that young and I saw it, I became deathly afraid and obsessed with sharks. And
I was obsessed with sharks too. I feel that. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And so I think that obsession, and the idea that I was so afraid of this fake thing, fueled the inspiration and just awareness of someone made this thing. It wasn't it was contemporary for when it came out, and it just looked real, but it was still a monster movie, and all the reasons why people love Jaws as a movie, but through the lens of a 5-year-old. Yeah. And so I think that was the first movie that I saw where I really became aware of the filmmaking process. Not that I'm some genius kid or something, but just the fact that there are people behind the cameras. Yeah, it's just the first one that had that impact. Because I'm sure you saw I'm sure I saw movies before that. I'm sure you saw 100%. Movies before that, but you don't remember them. I literally I was writing this as the introduction for this book I'm writing. I was writing about that because I was that was the experience. It was that in King Kong, 1933, that my grandfather had on a VHS tape at this house, his Cape house we stayed at in the summer. And that's what I watched because that was the only things they had that were, I guess kid friendly. Not really, but right. Yeah, I know.
But that's what I watched. And that is the first time I was oh my God, incredible. I'm sure I had seen stuff before then, but I don't remember it. That was the one that made it click. That's funny. We're
that's unbelievable.
Opposite coast. Were you always out in LA or did you move out there?
I moved out here. I've been out here for close to 10 years now.
So where are you from originally?
I was born in Tennessee, and I lived there for the first 5 or so years of my life. And then I briefly lived in Maryland. And then I grew up for most of my teenage life in Illinois, a suburb an hour south of Chicago.
Okay, so you had no water to be afraid of then. There's no ocean.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
just the lakes.
Lake Michigan's pretty big. Yeah, I mean that could substitute for sure. But that's funny. I don't know what it was. I just was well, I guess I'm going in those waters. And at the time there were no sharks, and now there are, which is Jaws has become so much more real in the last 5 years. Where somebody got killed by a shark off of the Cape 2 summers ago. It's real now. They were never there before. That movie is scarier now than it ever has been.
Strange.
Yeah. It's hey, I don't know, but that's super cool. We share that story. I definitely remember being obsessed with sharks. I had all the books and the VHS tapes of sharks, and oh my God, Shark Week was an event. So I feel you. That's awesome though. So
you get it, Jeff.
I just get it. I guess maybe I should start making movies with you. We're right on the same wavelength.
100%.
But I did want to dive in. You're, indie movie, small, low budget movie. What's the process getting your movie? I mean, you've got 35 millimeter prints, right? Which I assume, see, this is my ignorance in the subject. I assume there's a whole process behind that, right? Even getting that done and completed. And then, how do you go about, how does somebody out there who's I'm going to make a movie, I want a Blu-ray release. How did you go about that then afterward and even get it done?
Totally. So for the film print, and it's all about thinking about vendors. There's a vendor for any aspect of the filmmaking process that you can find. You can Google it and it will exist. You know what I mean? And so, for the film print, there's this company in London. Their name is Cinema Printing Company London. And so a lot of, independent films will go to this, company for an affordable film print. And like I live in Los Angeles, there's Photochem, there's like Gotham Film Labs and stuff like that.
Right.
And it was still more affordable to, ship my external hard drive to them and, get the film print, 4 reels of film shipped over here than it would be to like have Photochem strike the film print and then me like drive over there and pick it up myself.
Wow.
But they're like super great people over there. So I, as far as that process, it's a back and forth with just like the tech specs of like what the film is and what is the proper way that you want it to be shown and heard, and then just sending over a hard drive and just dealing with the company. And it's a kind of similar process as far as like Blu-ray manufacturing and authoring. So for the Blu-ray release, I ended up working with a company called Optical Media. And they do other things, like they will press vinyl and stuff like that. And
very aptly named company.
Yeah, 100%. They can also do they do 4K releases as well.
Okay, cool.
So I think I'm trying to remember where they're based, but I think they're in like Minneapolis or something like that. But yeah, I looked up a bunch of companies that do this, from like the most expensive to like the cheapest, and then try to figure out what this release would justify.
Yeah.
And Optical Media seemed like the most like close, right in the middle there on the spectrum, and could in the end of the day provide the quality release that I was looking for. And, there was a thought, but I totally lost it.
So like when you're going through that are you getting like when I'm just thinking of like how you review like Blu-ray, right? And 4K discs,
right.
Like everybody's looking at the color grade that's used, and, is there any digital artifacting, or is there any, issues with the transfer? Like, are you getting proofs along the way and sort of like,
oh yeah,
approving?
100%. I have one like right here.
Okay.
And so, they would mail me, copies throughout the process.
Nice.
And we would just have a dialogue.
Cool. So you're sort of in full control, I would assume, right? As the film, was it you? Or did you work with the team? Like, did you have a DP or anybody that would help you out with that, or is it primarily you?
Primarily me, because I colored the film. We did have a DP, but then I was the colorist.
You actually colored. Cool.
Yeah, it was a black and white film.
Yeah.
And so, I wouldn't have been that confident to do it had I not like just recently. Through all of lockdown and, just life, having consumed so much media at the current state of it, and so knowing how it would end up looking on a contemporary like 4K monitor gave me that confidence to like color it myself.
Gotcha.
What the potentials of that technology
I think we all watched a lot of media during the the lockdown, so I definitely hear you. I was like, there's nothing else to do, so I guess I'll do that. And that was pre-kids, so I had all the time in the world to watch movies, which was great.
For sure.
Yes, the black and white, I've always been I think they are some of the best looking movies when it comes to the 4K format too, the way that HDR and the dynamic range, like I think people kind of sleep on that, how
totally
beautiful those movies can look. The black and white is very, very striking. So, what was your source? You
mentioned that on like your videos, how great the celluloid.
Some of my favorites,
things.
Double Indemnity, It's a Wonderful
Psycho.
Life, Psycho. I filmed a review video for the Maltese Falcon, which I haven't edited and put out yet, but great, better than movies that are 15, 20 years older. that are in color.
100%.
The Maltese Falcon blew away like Rebel Without a Cause and Cool Hand Luke in my eyes.
Damn.
So yeah, that
those.
black and white looks fantastic. And I mean, how difficult is that to go and color? Because I mean, you're basically just working with a gray scale, right? A black to white. But I mean, I feel like there's got to be some intense nuance there.
There really is, and it took a very long time to do it, and that's why I was like, I don't want to work with someone else for how long this is going to take. I don't have control issues, Jeff, I swear. But yeah, it was I guess we're, at the very beginning, I really wanted to shoot it on film, 16 millimeter, black and white, tri-X reversal, like knew the exact film stock that we wanted to shoot it on, but just, it wasn't necessarily a cost issue. It was more of a time constraint issue, and just how much, like, we shot the movie in 4 days, and it was very much a sort of like on to the next setup situation. They were, good days as far as, I've been like an on-set production assistant on some horrendous shows, and these weren't those days, but it was a lot of work that we did. And the confidence that I had in myself wasn't necessarily there as far as being able to pull it off. And then so at a certain point, as far as being able to make our days and stuff, it just behooved us to shoot it digitally. And so the benefit of knowing the exact film stock that we would have shot it on was huge, as far as the sort of, what you're talking about, as far as like, you think it's a limitation, but it's really opening up so many doors as far as like, is it going to be this sort of high exposure look? Is it going to be this, kind of flat grayer look, or like, but we knew exactly this. It was the sort of classic, the idea that you have in your head of like this high contrast black and white film noir sort of look.
Yeah.
That's what that film stock would give. And so the cinematographer, Conrad Hunziker, he had a LUT that he applied to the camera and the display. So while we were filming, we could see it in real time, what it would roughly look like. And so that definitely helped. And as far as shooting in black and white in general, if you're a filmmaker out there and you are shooting a super low budget thing, I highly recommend it, because it allows you to think in textures and tones rather than color. And that just saves so much money and time. And so if it works, thematically with your piece at all, I definitely recommend doing that, because it'll just save you so many headaches.
No, makes a lot of sense. I feel like a lot of very famous directors' first films are often black and white too. I mean, the one that immediately came to mind was like, Christopher Nolan's, was it Following, which is all black and white.
Following, yeah.
I mean, we talked about, Romero and Night of the Living Dead, which easily, could have done that in color. It's 1968. I mean, widely available, but it's low budget, and and the effect that it had, I mean, unintended or not, it's incredible. So I hear you. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've always just thought like, if you're going to make something cheap, like, just, people like pull out their iPhone or something, but the black and white thing is interesting, because you really can just kind of focus on the scene and not have to worry about like all the external color that could come into play and really like screw with your image, I guess.
100%. It gives you just a little bit more control as a filmmaker.
Yeah. So did you guys, did you shoot it on that? You didn't shoot it on that film stock, but that was your idea. How did you actually shoot the film?
Right. We shot it with a Blackmagic Ursa Mini, I believe. And so it recorded 4K. Okay. And that was the camera body that we used. Okay.
So you do have you've got a 4K digital intermediate essentially that you could send out to have turned into 35 millimeter and then to Blu-ray.
Exactly.
Nice. So it should look pretty sharp then, I would think.
Yeah, it looks great. Like I when I saw these copies that were coming in for the like visuals, like as we were doing, I was like, it was hard to critique it, because it
Yeah.
just looked so good.
Yeah, no, totally.
And
Totally get that.
yeah. And you hear all the things about like what is the difference between like streaming or like a physical like Blu-ray and like to know something so intimately and to have like personally, like I would watch it on my 4K monitor in like 4K streaming on a YouTube link, but then to get that Blu-ray quality disc and just like see, it blew me away. It was like a new experience, seeing it for a first time sort of viewing experience. It really, just because I knew it so well, each frame, it just blew me away.
That's awesome. So I think you guys ran a Kickstarter first, right, to get these out there?
Yes.
So
Yes, exactly.
What was that? Did you do a Kickstarter for the film itself, or did you do that on your own? And you did the Kickstarter for the Blu-ray specifically, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I self-funded the production of the film, and then did a Kickstarter for the home media release. And so once because I always wondered, I'd done a Kickstarter with a friend of mine back in college, but it always confused me to do one for like just the film, because it's like, what is my reward? What am I going to reward you with? Like,
right.
I'm already like the only money I need is for the film. So,
right.
But I'd saved up a lot and like was lucky enough to be working through lockdown and all of that stuff, and so this after I'd written a bunch of different scripts during lockdown, and then finally landed on this idea that was clearly like very producible. And so once it was in my head that I wanted to have this sort of exhibition of the film, screenings in 35 millimeter and home media physical release, then that made sense to do some crowdfunding, because then there's an actual object that you can get. Like board games are huge on Kickstarter because you fund it and then here you go, there's the board game. It was one of the few times that I really felt like, here we go, as a filmmaker, that I could really use that crowdfunding in a sort of one-to-one way.
And the best part is, and this not to throw shade at other Kickstarters, but the best part is you actually then went and made the Blu-ray discs, right? And they're going to be available in a reasonable amount of time, which is always a key. Yeah. So the Kickstarter, I've been hearing people lately, people tagging me, they're like, I funded a Kickstarter 6 years ago and I just got the Blu-ray. It's like, oh my God, I can't imagine, like, first of all, what took so long, but like, totally. You went and used that money and went and did it, and they're gonna, are they already available, or are those sort of?
They're not yet. They should be arriving any day now.
Nice. So what was the turnaround like on that?
It was the before it was at a point where everything was signed and sealed. I'd say it was probably a few months of back and forth, just because this is like a smaller thing on their radar, and also, like it is my passion project.
Sure.
But once they, the disc was approved, the cover art was approved. We also have a 12-page booklet. Once the booklet and all of the art was finalized and approved, it's like maybe 8 weeks. If that on their end. Yeah. As far as, manufacturing all the copies and then, sealing them and mailing them out.
And they handle all the packaging too. Like you worked on the, the inside cover art and everything. That was all handled there at this optical media.
Yeah. So they send over the printing templates.
Yeah.
That would just be, for any release. And then I worked with my good friend Jesse James Dean, who did the poster art for The Made Man. He also then designed the graphic image for the cover, and then I did the booklet itself. And so yeah, it was kind of like my little art project.
I mean, and it's all just like I mean, you obviously have to do work on your end, but like one-stop shop with this optical media. It sounds, honestly, I don't know. I have this vision in my head and I'm like, I can't imagine the hoops I feel like you'd have to jump through to get something made. It sounds like maybe if you work with them, it's not too bad. I mean, there's cost to it, but like they kind of handle it.
Right.
It sounds like a pretty straightforward process as long as you know what you want and what and you can give them what they need.
Yeah, you have to, in situations like this, you definitely have to know exactly what you want.
Yeah.
And as you know, we've talked about like collecting all of this stuff. I can't tell you how many of these releases that I've looked at that I've loved and how many I've been disappointed in. And all of the all of those little nitpicky things about like looking at a booklet and being like, oh, I hate when the text gets too close to the spine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to do that, so like you have to have that, awareness of things and where it can go and all of that stuff. But as far as a vendor and what a vendor can do, I couldn't recommend them more.
Oh, shout out. I'm going to have to keep that in mind in case, I don't know. I've always thought about it. I'd love to even just like help somebody else get something out there someday, or,
100%.
put some money up to get some, because there's so many movies like this. I've talked to the guys at TerrorVision. We talked about this and it never really sparked like this. It sparked something in me because I've been to so many film festivals and there's so many films, like The Made Man that will screen certain places, right? And they're screened and they do the festival run and then poof, festivals end, they're gone out of thin air. There's nothing. And there's so many of those that probably should be preserved on a Blu-ray, even just DVD physical format somewhere. So I appreciate your like approach to that, to make sure that there is that posterity, I guess, the longevity of your movie, like it's going to last past the run. You had sort of a bigger vision, which I think sometimes, I don't know. I don't know if people don't think about physical and they just, I see a lot of these movies when I look them up from festivals that do get dumped on like a Tubi or something, a free streaming service, which is fine for, I guess awareness, but those things are so inflated that it's hard to kind of stand out. So, how do you view that as like a smaller filmmaker, like physical versus streaming versus digital purchases, like in the business side of things, how does that, how do you think about that in your mind when you go and make this? Like you had the goal to create the physical to begin with, but how have you kind of approached the other two areas, the digital and the streaming side of things?
Yeah, I think the mantra that I like give to my peers and stuff is, I'll say, is it's all like the art of exhibition is like the corny thing that I'll say. It's not about necessarily distribution or anything like that, because this is there wasn't other people's money in this movie, so I was able to kind of as far as like funding the production, right?
Sure.
So there wasn't some sort of sum that we were striving for.
Well, and you had control over what you wanted to do with it. You don't have to deal with anybody else who had money into it.
100%.
Yeah.
And so like, that being said, the one fear that I had of this movie, like going through everything and like having this movie made and all that stuff, is exactly what you described. It's like it just becoming a private link on a Vimeo account. And so I haven't focused that much on festivals, to be honest. Like I've done my due diligence of like, I filmed, the movie's complete, so I'm going to submit to like the 30 film festivals that are accepting right now, but then I'm moving on. I'm not going to wait and see like who's accepting or anything like that, because the two things that I know that are most important to me as far as like what a movie is like going to see it at a screening or having the opportunity to watch it at home. And so like the best ways I could do that, are like the highest sort of like, as far as it being a canvas.
Yeah.
This release, like it's being able to see it on film or watching it on Blu-ray. And so at the very top. I should make sure that those are options and then work down rather than, going through the festival experience and all of that stuff. There's not an A-list actor in this movie. There's no, influencer, famous celebrity cosign. So it is what it is when it comes down to it being a smaller movie. And so then it becomes what is important of the viewing experience. And those are the two things for me, for sure.
I like that perspective, because and I mean, I'm sure, like you said, you want this to live beyond the Vimeo link. Like you have,
right.
I mean, you have Blu-rays for people who funded the Kickstarter. So like, you're getting a certain amount, you're going to sell them on Diabolic. Like this movie that you made is going to be on people's shelves in homes. Like that's a really cool aspect of this that I do think a lot of people, I don't know if they just don't know how to approach it. It becomes, whatever they do the festival thing, it's overwhelming. I'm sure it's a lot to do all on your own.
And I think there's this narrative that is kind of like taught to up and coming filmmakers that like, or just people who want to make a movie, rather. Let me rephrase that. There's this narrative that gets told to people who want to make a movie that you make a movie and then you submit it to festivals. And then if you're lucky, there's a distributor that comes along and picks up your movie. And then if not, then it doesn't happen. And like, that's, I would just like had to think about it for a second. I was just like, wait, I'm just leaving the fate of my movie up to fate. Like that's crazy. Right. And so like, and so I think for this, I don't have anything truly against streaming or, digital purchases or anything like that. It's just the fact that like, I do have the control of like how it can be viewed. And so why not make sure that at the very beginning, you can have the best experience possible as a viewer. And it's been a really informative journey as far as like, making connections like the optical media people. And that's all just cold call sort of stuff of just doing my research and looking up companies and then reaching out to the people and seeing if it could work out.
Yeah, just hustling. I love it. I mean, that's
totally.
I mean, that's how that's how it happens for people too, right? There is, I've never, I don't think fate, some people get lucky for sure. There's
luck always has an aspect.
Right. Some people get lucky, but there's a huge part of just like, just being the best advocate for yourself and for your film that you can be, and just, doing the cold calling and just getting it out there and getting it to Diabolic because of some connections you've made. You're going further than a lot of people are able to do through a festival. That I see that cycle a lot. It is like, it's make the movie, festival, okay, it didn't get picked up. Okay, Vimeo, private link, start over, try again. Like, and it's sad because some of those movies, just because they don't get picked up, I mean, there's some good stuff out there, and it's impossible to see them. So it's I'm glad to hear that it's easy. I don't know. Hopefully, maybe more people will follow this method. I mean, I'm being biased because I want physical releases of stuff, but it's an interesting way to approach it. I mean, in the theatrical side of things, like the showings you're doing with the film reels, I mean, how does that work? Is that just sort of just cold calling places around LA and being like, hey, I want to show this, movie? Is it you just kind of hustling on that too?
Those are, definitely. Yes. That's a short answer, but like, those are to go more into like the actual process. Those are, so it's theatrical. You're doing a private rental basically. Okay. And then once the private rental is set, then you can make like an Eventbrite page, and then there you go. You have a screening. And so if you are a filmmaker out there and you're just looking to have your work screened, then I'd recommend reaching out to any independent theater that is in your area. And this is a very common practice for filmmakers. Absolutely.
So no, not really any different than from like, if I wanted to go watch, whatever, some new 4K release with like 30 people, you could just, you're just essentially renting the theater space out and then building your event around that.
100%.
Cool. And then do you split profit with them, or is it just totally, they take the rental fee and whatever you make on tickets, or are you doing these for free? I don't even know how are you approaching that side of it?
So for instance, this May 28th screening, if you donated at all to the Kickstarter, then you get in for free. You and a guest get in for free. But then there is a general admission charge if you didn't. And so, I'm kind of just playing it by ear with each screening that gets booked. For this, it's when you have a film print, then you're paying for a projectionist to run the film and all of that sort of stuff.
Right.
And so for this, it's just a flat, charge that I pay them. And then whatever I gain is just what I get. But yeah, it's a very grassroots, like DIY sort of way of going about it. And how I look at it is like a lot of festivals that I might get into with this movie wouldn't even screen it on film at this point in time. So it's like I might as well just do the screenings exactly how I want them to be and go from there.
That's a good point. I think I'm thinking of the festivals I've been to, and some of these are at like old independent theaters that, they do screen stuff on film, 35, 70 millimeter, but I don't think they do for the festival because it's just too much. It's too much work. You'd have to have, 4 or 5 projectionists in each theater while things are running concurrently. It would be a lot. So I think it's a good point if you want to screen your film reel. But it is, I like your approach. I've talked to, lots of people who have done Kickstarters and have done, even physical releases or, just I've had plenty of people reach out, but like nobody's done it in this way, which is kind of cool. Like you really are just kind of taking it on. Yourself and going full grassroots, and sounds like you've got some momentum, which is very cool. You fulfilled the Kickstarter, right? So you get all the that hit the goal. You get all the Blu-ray discs going out. It'll be exciting to see it hit Diabolic. It's man, for a collector, that's like the dream, right? This is pretty cool.
I know. It's hard because there's like I said, there's like the filmmaker in me who's like, but is this good? Is this right? And then like the film freak over here is just like, are you kidding? It's Diabolic DVD.
Right, right.
It's just like, this is amazing. What are you talking about?
Absolutely. That would be, I've always been like, damn, that would be so cool just to have anything that I was a part of, like on a Blu-ray. I've got like so many of them. I wish one of them was mine. So I'm very jealous of you having your own. That's very cool.
That's high praise coming from you, dude.
Very cool. So, what's next for you? Like, do you have is there anywhere people can follow for updates, I guess, first on this one, The Made Man, when, so they know when this goes out on Diabolic, they can buy it, they can check it out, where they can pick that up, and then sort of, I guess, secondary, what is next for you think?
The best way to get updates about the film, and this is where I post about screenings and all of that info, is on our Instagram account, and that's at The Made Man Movie.
Perfect.
And then
we will link that.
Okay, cool. But I think for now it's just kind of focusing on the exhibition of this film. I have this nightmare version of myself where I just like look back and I just let it become, like we said, like a private link. And so I'm just like really trying to focus as much as I can on this. And in the, downtime that I do get in between that and my day job, I'm just, writing scripts, and hopefully one of them makes sense to make eventually.
Sweet. All right. So we will, I'll definitely link that if you're out in the LA area. I guess pay attention for any local screenings too. That would be super cool to be able to see it on 35 millimeter, I'm sure. Especially like that film noir look and feel. I'm very excited to see what the Blu-ray looks like. because, we've got I don't know how many Blu-rays out there get like authored and colored and like approved by somebody who's this big an enthusiast, right? So I have high hopes now. I have high hopes for how this looks.
Well, I hope it satisfies that high hope.
Well, we'll see. I know I would have high expectations if it was me. So I'm sure you did too for your disc. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's super cool. So yeah, we'll link that down in the description. Follow along. Do you have any like personal Instagrams or anything you want people to follow for other projects?
The Made Man movie is the big one, and then I'm on Instagram, Mildrew, MILDRUEW. But yeah, I post about all of my screenings and stuff like that on my personal account, as well as the Made Man movie. Yeah. All
right. Well, I gotta say, huge props to you for, several things. Just getting a movie made, first of all, is
thank you.
Is incredible, and having it be a feature length movie too, like ton of work. So props to you for that. Props to you for getting a Blu-ray release out there and supporting physical. I think that's a super cool way to go about it. So very excited to see what's next. I'm excited to check this one out, and we'll make sure to get the word out so we can support the little guys out there on physical media, because it's important.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Yeah,
keep watching, liking, subscribing. Thank you so much.
You do it for me. You tell the people what to do. I love it. Like, subscribe, the whole nine. But yeah, I appreciate your support, and just watching my stuff, because I'm telling you, 5 years ago, I didn't think anybody cared but me about this stuff. So it's very exciting to meet more people and filmmakers and people in the industry who just are like, no, man, people do care. So thank you, because I thought I was crazy until I started talking to more people. I feel like it's not.
You're the best, dude. Are you kidding?
Well, I appreciate that, but there's lots of us out there now. I just feel like you don't run into them in your everyday life. So thank God for the internet, 100%. Because otherwise I'd feel like a freak with all these movies behind me.
I completely understand.
It's crazy, but yeah, thanks for coming on. We'll keep everybody updated. This was super cool just to learn about the process. You've got my mind going now, so I know what I'm going to be thinking about the rest of the night. It's
hell yeah.
How do I get a movie out on Blu-ray for myself? How do I make a movie here? You got me thinking. So I appreciate all the insight and everything, and for everyone listening out there, I'm sure it was helpful, and just it's an interesting look at how an independent film, even something low budget, can make its way to physical media, and the importance of physical media for just, preservation and longevity of film. So very cool. And thank you for sharing and being so open.
You got it, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll stay in touch, and thanks for coming on. All right, everybody. So that's our interview with Drew. Make sure you check out his movie, The Made Man. I will put all of those links to his Instagram, both his personal and the movie Instagram, down in the description. And make sure you stay tuned. That'll be going up on Diabolic DVD, which is very cool. Not only did he self-finance and go the Kickstarter route, create a Blu-ray, and actually produce the Blu-ray, so people didn't have to wait 6-7 years to get it. People are going to get it very soon, it sounds like. He's got them coming in. He's then able to get more copies made, sell them on Diabolic DVD. A really, really cool story that certainly inspired me as somebody who's always wanted to have, some sort of physical media that lives beyond me and lives outside of the YouTube channel. I want something that's on somebody's shelves, and Drew did it, and he made a very cool movie along with that. So props to him. Definitely go check out his stuff, support him. And if you're at all interested, make sure you check out that Blu-ray release when it goes up on Diabolic DVD. So thank you all for watching or listening wherever you are. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and like this video, and check out the rest of the podcast episodes. And if you're on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your audio podcasts, please remember to follow us on those platforms so you never miss an episode drop. And if you like the episode and are enjoying the podcast, 5-star reviews go a very long way to help us reach more listeners. So I appreciate all of you who have done that. We have almost 150 5-star reviews on Spotify alone. So that's been incredible to see. And thank you for the support there. So everybody out there, have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for the next episode coming soon on Tuesday, and more great guests coming next week. And I will talk to you all soon.
Coming soon. Be sure to subscribe to the Films at Home podcast using your favorite app so you don't miss another episode. And while you're there, don't forget to rate and review this podcast, which helps us out tremendously. You can also help support us by watching our short-form content over on YouTube and TikTok by searching Films at Home. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at films_at_home. The intro and outro were created by Elin Osborne. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.